Hi, welcome to the Simple Nourish Living podcast. I'm Martha, and this is my brother and partner Peter.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good, really well. So, our topic for today is you're not broken, you're human. And that awareness came to me years ago in the book Mindless Eating that you'll hear me talking about a lot because it really was life-changing for me. But before we get into the topic today, what's new and good in your world?
I made a really good soup last night.
Tell us more. I mean, I love to know what people are
Well,
eating.
yeah, because sometimes working on Simple Nourish Living, cooking can be challenging because we test recipes, we have to photograph. Sometimes I like cooking just for the joy of cooking, and sometimes, well, I love the work we do. Sometimes it feels like work and it doesn't, and sometimes the joy is not there when I'm cooking. So yesterday I was just playing and I had a package of butternut squash. I've recently discovered that it's really easy to roast in the air fryer, which I've done a couple times. And so I really wanted soup because it's been cold here. So
Uh,
I roasted a package of butternut squash. I don't know, it was maybe around 16 ounces or so.
so when
Roasted
you
that.
say a package of butternut squash, it's already like peeled and chopped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a plastic container already chopped and peeled from Trader Joe's. Seasoned it with um, what did I use? I used herb de Provence and just some sea salt and a little bit of oil. Roasted that for about 20 minutes in the air fryer, really quick. And while
Mm-hmm.
that was cooking, I was doing some work actually. And then when that
Uh-huh.
was done, I blended it with a little chicken broth
Uh-huh.
because I wanted a sort of not creamy, but I didn't want a chunky soup. I kind of wanted a smoother soup,
Uh-huh.
even though it ended up being chunky, but I'll get to that in a minute.
I love cooking. I love
And I
cooking.
had some light coconut milk, so I was going for kind of a Thai
Uh-huh.
Asian-y kind of thing, and I had some
Mm-hmm.
red Thai chili paste. So
Uh-huh.
after I blended it and got the squash all smooth, I added it to a large saucepan,
Mm-hmm.
added the coconut milk, and then I had some leftover rotisserie chicken. And I just was having fun with the spices, adding the
Uh-huh.
Thai chili, and then I added some ginger, I added some nutmeg. It was just really fun. And then
Uh-huh.
I wanted a little more veg in it, and I had a package of green beans. So I just chopped up, or actually just broke them apart about,
Uh-huh.
inch long pieces and threw in some green beans. So it did end up kind of being chunky, but it was like that creamy, coconutty Thai
Yeah.
with the squash. It was really good and had a nice little bottle of red wine with it. Um,
Ooh.
so
Very.
it is a recipe I think could be good for the website,
Mm-hmm.
and I may at some point work on amounts and
Perfecting it in amounts
spices.
and all the details you
Right,
need when you're going to share the
right.
recipe. Oh,
But it
that's
was
cool.
fun just not thinking about pictures and amounts and
Right.
just having fun and
It's sort of you get in the flow.
yeah.
There's some good cool quote I read recently about that. When you're in the flow state, there's no anxiety. You're in a really you're just in a really cool spot.
And I just was going with my taste in the moment because I had in my mind what I was looking for, but I didn't really know how I was going to get there. So
Uh-huh.
I was tasting as it was heating and I
Yeah.
just sort of, yeah. So that was
Sounds
fun.
yummy. Cool. Well, that's great.
What about you? What's going good for you this week?
Well, as you know, on Sunday we sent out an
Mm,
announcement that we were going to be starting this podcast, that we had
we
this
did.
intention around starting this, and we asked for suggestions from our readers, and I've been kind of blown away
Hmm.
by just the number of responses and the quality and just the interesting questions and suggestions that came forth. And so I haven't been able to read all of them yet, but we've started a spreadsheet, as you know, to just capture all these great ideas. I don't have any expectations around this. As you know, we've talked about it. We kind of decided this is something we wanted to try, kind of like we
Hmm.
tried the website. So I didn't really have any expectations about what the response would be or what the kinds of, questions or ideas or suggestions might come forth. So I'm just really pleasantly surprised by all that.
And what I found interesting is I was scanning the comments and feedback was how varied the response was. And there wasn't a lot of overlap.
There wasn't. I see. I
There
don't. I
wasn't a
haven't.
lot of people saying the same thing. It was a wide range of topics and ideas and suggestions.
And I think that's really cool because we sometimes sit here in a bubble and we have ideas about what would be helpful, but never could we have come up with, right? All
Right.
of that variety of ideas. So thank you everybody who took the time to submit a suggestion. We're really appreciative of that.
And if at any time during any of these videos you do have an idea or suggestion, please feel free to drop
Yeah.
it below in the comments, and we'll add it to our
Absolutely.
list.
Absolutely. So this is now podcast number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah. So we're a long way from feeling comfortable doing this, but we're just going to keep plodding along. Because this whole experience is really analogous to me to the whole weight loss journey. And we've talked a lot about you just can't wait for your circumstance to be perfect. I mean, when you want to move something forward, when you want to accomplish something, you have to just kind of start where you are, right? Use what you have and just do what you can. And that's how
Make mistakes.
Learn
from them.
Right. And realize that there is no mistake, right? There's no failure, really. There's just feedback. We're going to learn how to do this, just like the weight loss journey. And it's like when you really change your focus that way, instead of having it be feeling overwhelmed, if you can just sort of say, well, it's just kind of an experiment. And when you change your focus and you change the way you look at it, it can really start to become, I think, kind of fun, right? And a lot less overwhelming, depending on how you spin it. So,
Definitely. So you're not broken. Tell me more.
Right. So I think you've probably heard me talk a lot about, and there's several posts, and we'll talk more about mindless eating.
Which I haven't read yet, but I hope maybe one video series we might be able to do.
Yeah. Maybe like sort of a book club, because there is a series of posts that I did years ago on the website where I tried to do this kind of virtual kind of book club. And it has been so life-changing for me. It comes up again and again and again. And we all have different aha moments. A lot of people may read it, but a lot of the feedback, I went back in preparation for this and looked at that post, week 1 of the challenge, and there are a lot of it was done back in like 2017.
Oh, wow.
And there are a lot of really good comments on there about how people were following along and reading it and having those same kind of ahas. So
do I remember correctly that's something you did in the summertime? It ran?
I did.
Okay.
So the story behind that was we flip back in 2017. We were living a portion of the year. We were living the winter and spring and fall in Phoenix, and then for the summer we were going to northern Wisconsin. And again, by the time I did the challenge, many years had passed. But so I was attending Weight Watchers, but I was over goal by like 7 or 8 pounds, and nothing was really happening. I felt like I was following the plan. I felt like I was doing what I needed to do. And I felt pretty stuck. And my leader at that point, because the goal was something I set back when I was 28 years old. And as a lifetime Weight Watcher, I was still sort of in a healthy range. And she's like, well, you have the ability to just change your goal weight. You can do it once, okay. I guess, according to the program. And she's like, maybe it's time to think about that. I was feeling good. It was just, when I was in the healthy range, it was just like, the part of me wanted to just get back to that goal. And so I decided to take off the summer because we were going to northern Wisconsin, where the closest Weight Watchers meeting was going to be like an hour away. And that wasn't going to happen. So I just decided to take the summer off from Weight Watchers, and I happened to read this book. And the book was called Mindless Eating, Why You Eat More Than You Think. Now, for years, I had seen that book, and I just was like resentful of the title, because I was like, of course I know. Of course I'm not mindless. Of course I know how much I'm eating. Why I'm not eating more than I think. But anyway, it took me a few years, and I finally read the book, and it was just like, aha, aha, aha. It was a light bulb watershed moment for me. And I found myself laughing out loud. It's a very interesting book. The experiments and studies that have been done to demonstrate the fact that we're mindless over how much we eat. It was just undeniable. But the book basically starts off by saying you're not broken, you're human. And here's all the experiments, and here are all the reasons for that, for that to be true. And so I just really, really feel strongly about sharing that with people, because I think so many of us beat ourselves up over the weight management aspect of our lives and we feel like we are broken. For me, the excess weight started pretty young, like third, fourth grade on. And so it always felt like this battle and struggle. And I felt bad for whatever reason. And so when I realized that I wasn't broken, that I was human, it was like, oh my goodness. I mean, it took all this stress away and it made it fun. Because what he points out is the fact that as humans through the centuries, through millennia, we were designed for survival, to be on the seafood diet, essentially, SEE food, right? Not SEA food, because the environment was very much unpredictable, and sometimes food was plentiful and sometimes food was scarce.
Right.
And so, right, yeah, so you had to eat up when the food was available and plentiful. So all of your biology is designed to eat up when you see food, when you're in the presence of food, because you just don't know how long before your next meal. Now, fast forward, right, to our environment now, right? And I'm
Food
talking
is
about the
everywhere.
environment. I'm talking about an environment, right, in the developed world, in the United States. I'm not talking about places where food scarcity is real, and there are parts of the
Right.
world where that is still true. But here in the United States, where we live, we've never known, right, personally. I mean,
Right.
food
Right.
growing up in the 70s and 80s, I mean, food has just been plentiful. And you think about how much more available, I mean, the rules even back in the 70s, right, and the availability was way less than it is now. I mean, it's everywhere, and you can have it in an instant,
DoorDash.
right? You've got
Uber Eats. Yeah.
Uber Eats, DoorDash, you've got the microwave. I mean, what's the delay? Like, you think about what the delay was between I'm feeling hungry, like, even 100 years ago, between I'm hungry, right? It's time to eat. Let's figure out what to eat versus now. I mean, I have this facsimile of the Fannie Farmer cookbook, like the early, like I think it was 1898 version of that. And when you open the cookbook, the first 4 or 5 pages are all about how to light your wood stove.
Oh my goodness.
Think, right, before electricity, what did it take to fire up the stove? And then first you had to then go get the wood for the stove, and what it took to, how far away might your grocery store have been if there was a grocery store?
Right. Probably not even.
Probably not even. So when you think about that, the delay and like the availability versus now, where how far are you away from having that I'm hungry moment to like being able to fulfill it? Seconds.
Between drive-throughs and gas stations and
Yeah.
grocery stores, it's
Right. And so what he said to me just was like, and all of the examples he gave was like, oh my gosh, he was a professor at various universities and ran all of these experiments. And he was just fascinated by food and health and weight and the marketing and how it all interrelated. And he just did all of these studies and experiments demonstrating how our environment can influence us in ways that we don't even realize. The size of the bowls, the size of the packaging, the menu descriptions, how we're just influenced, the number of people we're eating with. I mean, he just goes on and on with all of these examples. And by doing that, he really helps show all of the ways that you can engineer. Because his tenet was that, if you can become really mindful, and that's another way to take better charge of what you're eating and how much you're eating. But in a distractible, busy world, that can be really difficult. So he came up with what he called this mindless eating approach. He called it the mindless margin, and the fact that he said it's easier to re-engineer your environment than it is to, change your mind. And that's what I started doing. So that summer I just started playing with all of these suggestions in terms of getting food out of view, like out of sight, out of mind, which was incredibly powerful, creating little like obstacles and roadblocks for making the real tempting food less available. And
Did it work?
oh my gosh. So my story is, I was taking the summer off, so I did not weigh. I just played, and I instituted all of these rules that I learned. And when I came back in the fall, and I went to my meeting, and I was under goal in a way that felt fun and unstressful.
So you didn't feel deprived. You didn't feel,
No.
yeah.
And again, I think that's what we're going to need to talk about a lot here, because I really believe that your mindset is just such a big part of this. It really is a mind, body, spirit kind of journey. And what I've come to see too is it all depends on how you're looking at something, whether or not you feel
Mm.
deprived or not. I don't know if we've talked, I think I've talked with you about this before, but maybe not where we've recorded it. But for years, like often we go out with mom, we've made it a tradition to go out with mom at least once a week, sometimes more. And I often, especially living in Phoenix where the climate is really kind of hot, and I'd be out at lunch, but I'd want to come home and feel good about no energy slump. And I've just
Hmm.
found that, really nice salads done with like grilled protein and stuff are just something that I love and that really work for me. I often would choose that because that's really what I wanted and they made me happy. I was never sitting there thinking, I don't want this salad. I wish I was having the burger and fries. But if I wanted the burger and fries, I'd let myself have it. But my mom, I heard mom like afterwards say, I just don't even understand how you can go out week after week and just get the salad. So she was seeing it through a totally different lens, where I was totally happy and she's like, you're never not on a diet. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm on a diet. I feel like I'm living my life in a way that really, really works for me. Where there have been times in the past where I did feel like I was on a diet and I did feel like I was deprived. And so like your mindset and like that summer of the mindless eating thing, it was fun to just sort of play and experiment and say, I wonder what will happen.
Hmm.
I mean, one of the big things for me was the size of your dishes. I don't even think we realize how important like it is in terms of feeling satisfied. Like if you take a cup of cereal, which is a typical serving, right, of a cereal, and you put it in a humongous bowl,
It doesn't look like a lot of
it looks
food.
pitiful. It looks pitiful.
Mm.
You look at it and you say, "I'm going to starve to death." Right?
Hmm.
That can't be enough. But if you put it in and sometimes you have to go out now and find smaller bowls because in addition to our food being supersized, like our dishes are supersized. So the bowls that come in a set of dishes are too big. You got to go out and pay more, for a smaller bowl, which I did. But you put a cup of cereal in a reasonable sized bowl and you put some fruit on top and you put some milk on it and it looks generous. And and so all of those things he talks about in the book, the fact that if you try to like free pour a serving of cereal into one of those huge bowls, guess what you're going to do?
Over pour.
Yeah, you're going to pour in like 2 or 3 servings. So he gives you all these great examples. And so it became fun and playful. And I continue to incorporate, what I learned from reading that book into my life. And it's been really magical. And I still have to call upon it and remind myself because I'll get in situations where, you go to somebody's house for dinner and there's a bunch of appetizers out.
Hmm.
And I find myself like overindulging because it's there. And part of me might want to say, Martha, you have no self control. And then I remind myself, you're human. And when you're standing here in front of food, don't be surprised, if you want to eat it, because you're going to have to stay really mindful and present and evoke willpower, right, in order to limit yourself. And so again, there are techniques, right, for managing that and saying, well, I'm going to get myself a little plate, right? And I'll put the food on it and I'll go enjoy it and I'll walk away. And then I'll step away from where all of those apps are out and I'll go have conversation, until dinner. And so again, it just feels more easeful to know it's not me. I'm
Mm.
doing what any human being is going to do in this circumstance. I'm not broken. And so I just want to share that with people and help them understand because I really think that can help you on this journey. And when you start to just really look at the environment outside of you and understand all of the ways it's influencing you. I was forever a huge fan of the Food Network. And I don't really watch the Food Network anymore. I mean, and you'll sit there and you'll watch and you'll be exposed to these things and suddenly you'll be like, I want that.
I'm hungry.
I need that. I'm hungry.
Hmm.
Where that came from the outside. If I really step back and check, well, are you really hungry? Or are you just salivating because you're seeing it, right? And oftentimes you just start salivating because that's what you're designed to do. When you see it, when you're out, at the mall and you smell it,
Hmm.
suddenly you're like, I need that. Where it's so you're being influenced from the outside, and the more you realize that, the more you can just kind of step back and just say, oh, I can take charge here. And one of the huge things I suggest to everybody is just really take a look at, and we can talk more about this. We can have other sessions where we just talk more about how can you really look at your environment or your spaces, right? If we can really sort of look at our spaces, our environment, and say, how can I set this up to be helpful for me? If I look around, is it harmful for me? You can just change. I mean, you can get to where you want to get to in a much easier, much gentler, less stressful way. And the
Well,
same
and
with your habits.
definitely, even though I don't have any direct need or immediate need, I would say that the book sounds really interesting, and I think we should definitely put it on the schedule because
Yeah,
it sounds like it could stir some
I
interesting
think so. Yeah.
ideas.
And I remember, you may not remember this, but we had a phone conversation. I don't know. I think you were up and you I think you had taken Neil for an appointment, and you were looking for a place away from that appointment site for us to talk. And the place that was suggested to you was like a donut shop, I think, or a bakery.
Yes, yes,
Remember
yes, yes.
that?
Hmm.
See, all these things stay with me because I always think of them in terms of mindless eating. But you were like, no, that's not the place I want to go sit,
So,
right? Because if I sit in a donut shop, it's okay to have it. I'm not saying you can't have a donut, but I think you want to be having the donut because you really want the donut, not just because it's there,
right,
right?
right.
And I'll just share one more story that's coming into my mind at this moment. Mom had a friend back in Phoenix who had a daughter who was struggling with her weight, and Patty was trying to help, her daughter set some boundaries. And I was having a conversation with her one day, and she had a job where she worked in a bookstore, I think, that was adjacent to like an ice cream candy shop.
Okay.
And it was the expectation that, I mean, every day this young person who was trying to rein herself in, essentially, she was taking her lunch in the candy shop, ice
Mm,
cream shop. And I'm like, that's like a degree of difficulty. I mean, I think about that's a degree of difficulty that you just don't want to subject yourself to. If you're really wanting to be kind to yourself, if you're trying to give up drinking, you're not going to be hanging out with your friends at the bar, right?
mm-hmm,
You're going to find
mm-hmm.
somewhere else to hang out where the temptation is not there. And if you're trying to eat less sugar, in an ideal world, you're not going to be sitting in the candy shop, eating your sandwich because, oh my gosh, the temptation's all around you. So there you have it. You're not broken. You're human. And this is what humans do. And when you see it that way, but our environment is broken. Our environment really now is designed to result in what we're seeing. We've got a big problem with overweight, and our biology hasn't changed that much. But our environment sure has. And if you just start looking at the environment and you look at some of the offerings at the restaurants, and the fact that, my gosh, some of these meals can have a full day's right worth of calories in like one meal. And
Yeah,
so,
some portion sizes at some restaurants is incredible
right. So
for
all
a
of those
single
things,
meal, not
right.
family style. Yeah.
Right. So we can talk more and more about all kinds of suggestions that are made in the in mindless eating to help manage those situations so that you can feel more in charge and more in control, and you can realize, what's happening and prevent it. So I think it's just a real powerful shift in your thinking.
Well, great. I think that's a wonderful idea. Very helpful.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. And again, if you have any ideas for other topics you would like explored, please leave them in the comments below. And please, 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 if you're interested in learning more, subscribe to our channel.
Thank you.
Thanks.